I've just been saved by a bunch of giant gerbils?
Mice, ma'am. We're mice.
Mice?
You were expecting turtles, maybe?
Mice.
Welcome back to the Tidarium Hangar. Welcome to Retro Wednesday at the Tidarium Hangar. This is also day 3 of Biker Mice Week. This is the meat and potatoes of it. This is the main 1993 toy line. All of the figures, all of the motorcycles, all the vehicles, all that kind of stuff. Anything that I don't have, I'll show a picture at the end. But this is pretty much the majority of it. They did a lot of repaints in it and some variants, and some of the later stuff is really awesome that they made. This is a pretty fun, pretty cool toy line overall, and it's largely overlooked by most collectors, but I'm going to get into taking a look at Biker Mice from Mars, the Galoob 1993 toy line, coming up. So what exactly is Biker Mice from Mars? This is a toy line based off of a cartoon, and it is humanoid mice from Mars that ride motorcycles, that fight off fish mutants for the most part, and Dr. Carbuncle. But is this toy line just riding the wave of anthropomorphic figures that started in the 80s? We had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Thundercats that sort of fit this, but this is more copying Teenage Mutant Turtles, which came closer to the end of the 80s, and then going into the 90s we saw a lot more toy lines following this. 90s toy lines brought us tiger sharks and SWAT cats and dinosaurs, just to name a few. There were also barnyard commandos and a bunch of other stuff going on kind of on the goofy side. This still was a little bit goofy, a little bit campy, but a bit serious. One of the reasons that people say that Biker Mice was a direct knockoff of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is because they copied the whole plan, the whole business plan of make a base figure and then make 20 different versions of the same base figure or core group of characters. 3 mice getting made over and over and over into 5 or 6 different teams. Seems like they followed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle plan. Okay, so we're going to start with the basic figure and move through each individual figure, and then we're going to go into the repaints as subgroups, because that's kind of how they did it. Same thing I did with my 2006 Biker Mice video, where I showed all the groups as subgroups. I'm going to do the same thing here, but if you haven't checked out the 2006 video, these are figures that are not made by Galoob. They're made by a different company. Talk about that in the other video, so go check it out. So we're going to start out with Throttle, who is the leader of the group, and then we're going to take a look at his motorcycle. This is his motorcycle right here, but we're going to slide it back because we're going to take a look at this guy. So, looking at him, he does come with a helmet, and some of these are harder to stand than others. For the most part, I have him standing pretty easy. And he does come with some cool shades. He has a vest, and you're going to see this. He's repainted 3 different times with this exact mold, and then he's remolded into some different figures. He does have some head articulation. They do have antenna articulation popping up, but that causes an issue that if you have a little bit of worn wear and tear on your helmet, then it likes to slowly creep up and just pop off. This thing's popped off 3 times since I've had this on the table. So anyway, he does have articulation about out to there, around to here, a 90 at the elbow, then the legs come out just a little bit. They have it to come out a bit so you can actually put them on the motorcycle, and then forward, and it kind of spins around. And I'm afraid I'm going to break them just because they're so old, and so they can fit on the motorcycle like this and make a motorcycle leg, and then no other articulation other than that. You always have to be careful with these old figures, even if they feel like they're pretty solid. I mean, you might just take it past its point and break it. Now, he does come with this disc launcher. They call it a sprocket launcher, I believe, and it's just friction. This is also what I think this is the same thing. You can just connect this to the playset, which, I'm still kind of flying blind on a few things with this toy line, but I think I figured out a few things. But this is what he comes with for the most part. So let's bring in his motorcycle, set him aside, and of course there's another one of him on his motorcycle. Now, this is where I think the toy line really does rock and roll and ride. Look at all the chrome on that vac metallized chrome. This is vac metallized with something. They still did it in the 90s. They didn't do it so much nowadays, but you can have like a generic knockoff Nerf gun that has chrome, vac metallized chrome all over it. But so it does a couple of things. First of all, you can ride around as a motorcycle. It's stable on its own, and I bet you can even fit 6-inch figures on it. I haven't tried, but These are 5.5-inch figures, so maybe some Joes will fit on it, maybe some Dreadnoks. Maybe I'll test it out when I get a group of Dreadnoks or something, but this seems pretty cool. You have adjustable parts right here, and you can shoot and fire this. And that thing went far. Hit the ceiling, came right back down. So, and you've got that on both sides. So, one thing I want to say about collecting these is this was kind of one of the harder parts to get. Push the button into, I guess you have to push the button in to get it back in there. So getting the missiles was kind of challenging, and it's one of those things that, like, well, if all you're missing is a missile, you can go find a missile for like $20. Well, $20 is a lot of money for one missile for this toy line. So that is a challenge. There is some tampograph paint all over it and all that kind of stuff. And they reuse this motorcycle, I think, 3 or 4 different times in different color schemes. More on that when we get to the subgroups. Next up, we have Moto and his motorcycle. And so we'll take a look at that motorcycle here in just a bit and see what all we can do with it. But let's take a look at this figure here. So this guy is sort of the bigger one. He does have a couple of earrings and stuff like that. And this is what Nacelle's basically remaking. They're remaking these to look like the size of the 2006 figures, maybe a little shorter, but they're going to look like the original 1993 versions of figures from that show. And they are 2 different shows too, by the way. Anyway, he does come with this missile launcher. Now, the missile launcher, you just push the friction, so it just kind of... Oh, come on. Friction-based. It's not wanting to work. Oh, yeah, this one you actually push up on it. It kind of notches down and you push up on it. Like that, which it wasn't very impressive. Still not very impressive. Okay, well. Anyway, that's how it's supposed to work. Oh, wow, there it goes. And here's his helmet. Now, they all have different helmets, and he'll have the same helmet repainted a few times for whatever reason, for different figures and stuff like that. And so... with that, they do come with these tails. Now, I didn't talk about this before. They have fully articulated, well, not fully, but just slightly articulated tails. This guy comes with a motor arm or a mechanical arm, and he has some sort of a communicator device or a laser. I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't watch the show too much, but is that a laser that's in his arm or something? Some of them are missing this little piece here, so you might want to look for that if you're looking for these figures, but still, pretty cool figure overall. Let's bring in his motorcycle, and there it is. Now, with his motorcycle, it does have a couple of features also. Like, each one of these has its own little feature. You do have this vac metallized chrome back brace. It's like a neck, whatever you call that. And he has chrome all here, tamper graphic on the sides. Wheels are not rubber on any of these. They are kind of just hard plastic. We do have chrome here, looking like it's missing something because you just have a screw. And I believe that's just the way they are on all of them. But you do have some black paint right here showing a mouse. That's not Mickey Mouse either. And then you push the button right here and it pops down that. It just pops the whole mechanism down. And what it is there's a rubber thing here, rubber wheel. And those are always so worn out on used ones. And as you roll, he's got his gun shooting. So that's its action feature. That's Moto's bike. We're going to see Moto again in like 5 different iterations. Next up we have Vinny, and so the first one, Throttle, was the leader. Moto is just the muscle, and this guy is the loose cannon of the bunch. Like, he's the fun, wild, crazy guy that goes out and gets into all kinds of trouble. They've got a crazy name for his bike. It's called the Radical Rocket Sled. And we'll take a look at that here in just a little bit, but let's take a look at Vinny now. This is the first figure I ever got for Biker Mice, and I had no accessories. I just messed around with his articulation, and he held up pretty well. He looked good, and for me, I think that this toy line is better than... the figures are better than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures, because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures lack the articulation, and this just feels like, you know, like a solid step. 5 years later, this is where Turtles should have been. They never quite went to this. So, and yeah, does have a couple of accessories. He has this crowbar that he can kind of fling around on a... I don't know. I don't know why this is what his crowbar does. I mean, that's not how... if he holds a crowbar, he should hold a crowbar kind of like this and just go to town with it. But they wanted to give it some sort of a spinning feature. So, that's strange. Galoob just wanted to add some playability to the toys and all that kind of stuff. And then he has this gripper piece over here, which it is supposed to have like a mechanism to grip and grab stuff. It's not spring-loaded or anything. It's all mechanical. And so with that, that's what he's got. And I have to admit, these accessories, his accessories are just really lame. Really lame. The other ones are okay, but this is just the lamest of the lame accessories. And he doesn't want to hold them. Again, his helmet is a little bit different than the other ones, and so yeah, they all have different helmets, but they sure did get the reuse out of them. They got that use out of that mold for sure, because they've got a bunch of different colors. So, bringing in the Radical Sled. Now, the Radical Sled doesn't do a whole lot, but I will kind of show you what is usually missing on this thing. But one of the things that it does, and you push this button, and it pops that up. And so this, what it does, it's all mechanical. There's no spring loaded to it. It's just this piece pushing these loose flaps that clip together, and it's breaking them apart. These pieces are hard to find. It is just hard to find. It was hard to get one with those on it. And then these side pieces here, for whatever reason, these engine pieces fall off. I don't know why. And then somehow I think we're supposed to be able to pop this up like this so that he can do like a... So it's not spring-loaded either. It's all mechanical, which is fine because that's less stuff that's going to break. What you see with the mechanical, semi-mechanical stuff we got on the other one, it's hard to get that one to work on the Moto motorcycle. But this thing is very popular, and it gets recolored many different times. But again, I don't have all the different versions, but it was kind of fun to have at least one variant version of each motorcycle. So we have a different biker mouse, and he is called Rimfire. Rimfire is a whole different mold, a whole different mouse. And as far as I know, I think this is the only version of Rimfire that they made. I thought he came with this motorcycle, but I think this is part of the motocross or the Freedom Fighters line. I will be showing pictures of the ones I don't have and kind of going into those different lines there. But this is one of those weird things, four-wheeler, and I know I always see him on these, and I think I bought him with this, but maybe it was just the way the seller sold it. But I thought it was a set, the way it came. Anyhow, it's still kind of cool. He's kind of got a chain on him, and he's got a vest, and he's got an orange shirt, green pants. He's shorter than the rest of them, but pretty cool. I'm glad they didn't make 15 different versions of this character. He's already hard enough to get, and let alone his accessories, which I was unable to get my hands on. So now we're going to talk about Charlie. She is more or less the April O'Neil of the group. She is the mechanic. She is the person that's on Earth that knows how Earth works, and she looks kind of like a cowgirl. She's got spurs and steel-toed boots. I don't know, I guess she doesn't have spurs, but jeans, a shirt, and some steel-toed boots. That's pretty cool. Now she does come with this gun here, which is, I'm sure there's some specific name for it, but as you turn this, it lights up. Now I think that what it is there's some like bushings in there or something. You turn it, and it is causing the spark. I don't think there's battery in there, because this thing, as old as it is, there's no way the battery would still work, so I'm guessing that that's what that is. So anyway, she's a pretty easy figure overall to get, but hard to get complete. I mean, you can say that about every toy line. Easy to get the figure, hard to get complete. She's a little harder than, let's say, the average biker mouse or mice, because they probably didn't make as many of her, because, you know, 80s, early 90s, girl toys, they didn't make as many girls in the boys' toy lines. Next up, we're going to talk about Lawrence Lindberger. This is the baddest of the baddies, and so as you can see from this one, he is a fish dude, and he's in a suit, and it shows that, like, he comes home after being all nasty and doing all his dirty work, and he changes his suit, which is actually a whole human body suit. This face mask thing was actually pretty hard to get. It was hard to get, I'm not gonna lie. But pretty much you need that, and you need this trap for him to be complete. He does have a purple suit. I like purple, so I do kind of like this figure. But he lacks some articulation. He's nowhere near the level of the mice. They put all of their work into the mice. And then the bad guys are almost just statues for some of them. Some of the bad guys have some really cool action features, though. But he does have a trap. He has a mouse trap, or a bear trap. So a mouse wanders by and gets caught. Oh. Well, it works better, theoretically, than it actually does. But we're actually going to see this gimmick again when it comes to Napoleon Brie, and that is okay. I guess we can take a look at that one next, but that one came in a later series. But let's just look at all the bad guys at once. Next up, we have Napoleon Brie. Now, this guy here is very similar to what we saw with Lawrence Limburger because of the fact that he has this removable face thing. He has a whole removable jacket and all that kind of stuff. Now, this one was really hard to get. Even just getting one with nothing was a challenge, but to get a complete one, I had to call in a favor from a buddy of mine. And so the thing about this is that there starts to be a point with toy lines like this that how much would you spend? And this figure usually runs like $75 to $100, and that is crazy amount of money. And then the figure I'll show later in pictures 4x runs $200 to $400. So there are some crazy expensive figures in this toy line, this being one of them. Now, with that, his little shoulder pads come off, and I don't know, you can hit it with it. It just seems like a nuisance rather than a fun feature. And I don't know if they really were supposed to come off, but they do, and they got strings to hold it on, and it kind of sucks. And he's more or less just a statue with very little articulation. He's got waist articulation. Oh, and he spins. That's nice. All right, next up we have Grease Pit. This one's getting a little bit harder to find as the bad guys. Some of the bad guys are harder to find than the good guys. But he's kind of a big, beefy dude. He's kind of like in Bionic 6 Mechanic, or he's kind of like Dagger for Mask. And so he's just a big lug that goes out there and does the bidding of the bad guys. So there's a couple things about him. He's got this thing on the back here, this barrel of oil. And he's got this squirting gun to squirt his oil on people and everything. So there's that. Now he has this tricycle, this trike. This trike is pretty cool, and he fits on it. It's got a tiny little front wheel, giant back wheels, flame effects, a table lamp mounted to the front, skull tamper-graphed right there. He's got some toxic stuff going on the back, and if you just squeeze the wheels together and roll them, it rolls fine, right? But if you separate the wheels and roll them, this back piece comes up. And of course, if you roll it fast, and I just can't get the effect on camera, but it flaps fast. We also have this other toxic waste barrel that opens up and just you can store stuff, but it doesn't fit his gun. It doesn't fit anything. It doesn't fit. It's kind of a waste, but you can plug his backpack barrel into the back of that. So let's do that real quick. Take this off and plug his backpack barrel into here. And there you go. Next up, we have Evil Eye Weevil, and the only one I have on the card because I could not find one carded for a while, or a loose one for a while. And I was like, well, I'll get a carded one. It was pretty cheap. It was cheaper than a loose one. Like, loose ones were like $50, and I wasn't going to spend that, and I got this for $30. So I was like, cool, that works. And so you can see the back of the box art and kind of see what they look like and all that kind of stuff. Get them out of the way. We can pan up a little better, but yeah, he's a pretty cool figure overall. He does something weird and different. He's got a guitar. He's kind of like an Elvis, and at the same time a skeleton. It's kind of crazy. And he does two things. First off, he's got, well, three things. He has this guitar, and the eye moves in it. For whatever reason, the eye moves, and that's how that works. And I'm not exactly sure with this clip here what we can do with that clip. I know that he can hold it like this, like he's supposed to, but I don't really know what this clip down here on the bottom of the guitar does. So anyway, move that out of the way. He has a second function or feature. So when you press the button on his back, it takes the pressure away, the tension off his limbs, and he goes like this, like all those little toys where you'd push the button on the bottom and they'd kind of do this and then snap back. Well, that's what he does. That's his function. Now, the problem with that is that some of these limbs fall off. Now, you can reconnect it most of the time. 90% of the time, you can reconnect it. So, if they just fell off because of the way it's built, but it's kind of strange. Now, there's one more feature, and if you get a light and shine it in his head, he's got light piping. Light piping in that eye. And the thing is, the reason he has light piping in that eye is because he uses that eye to put sort of like a hate spell on people. Sort of the Transformers episode Cosmic Rust, but he can do it temporary to anybody, whenever he wants. Evil Eye Weevil. Next up we have Dr. Carbuncle and Fred. Now Dr. Carbuncle is a bad guy, and he's got a hose coming out of his head, and this is permanently mounted in and glued in and stuff. So it's not a feature. He has no leg movement at all, and he doesn't like to stand. Although he's standing now, magically, he doesn't like to stand. He does have his arm movement and a little bit of head movement, and that's it. He does look a lot like the show. I mean, they did a good job with that. So he matches the show. Now Fred, the mutant, this is the standard one. He created Fred the mutant, has a tail back here. I showed it with his laboratory, and then boom, his brains come out. It shows him like stapling his head back on. And so kids can, look at Fred's brain and staple his head back on. I don't know why you'd want to do that. So this other figure that comes with the playset, the laboratory, Dr. Carbuncle's laboratory, does not have that feature. So, and he's a little harder to find. Still pretty cool. Overall, this is Dr. Carbuncle. So the last figure, the last baddie of bad guys that we're going to get into is this Electromag. Electromag it's just Electromag with an L. And he is missing one of these and a gun. But with that, he is probably the coolest of the bad guys because he's a robot. He looks cool. He's got this hoses up here and then a hose that comes out here that's supposed to come out here and his gun. This is supposed to have a magnet in it, but it does not have the magnet. So that causes issues with this. But anyway, looks pretty cool overall. And he is a creation of Dr. Carbuncle. Dr. Carbuncle made this guy, and he came out of his laboratory or brought him from another dimension or something like that. But every episode, it seemed like they pulled someone else out of that laboratory, and this is one of them. Wonder if they had plans to make others in the future. All right, so getting into the wacky subgroups. This is the Sports Bros, which seem to be, I don't want to say the most common, but I see them a lot. But I see them a lot in complete. Now, this is Vinny, and he has this basketball launcher on him, and he launches a basketball. Pretty simple. But he also has a basketball goal with integration. You can plug it in to the scoreboard playset, and that's pretty cool. Doesn't come with a helmet or a hat. Then we got Throttle. Now, Throttle has a hat, which is hard to get, by the way. It was really hard to get this hat. So, either buy it complete or, try to get his hat. Now, he does have this. He doesn't hold it well. He has a bat launcher, so you just kind of launch these bats like that, I guess. It's strange. You can hold it either way, up or down. And, of course, getting all the bats and all that, that's a challenge. This guy was actually weird, hard to complete. And then his baseball glove. So, a lot of stuff. This is just a later line that was a repaint. And then we've got Moto. And it's like a football Moto over here. And so with him, he comes with a repainted helmet that matches his new ensemble, number 77. And he's got a football launcher. So let's football launch this. Yo, catch my football. Well, disappointing? Maybe. Let's see. It's always better the second time for some reason. So the next subgroup is the motocross subgroup. And the thing about these, they are all remolded with different clothes, different outfits, gear, and stuff. And that is really cool. Hard to get, again, hard to get. I don't have all of them complete, and I definitely don't. Don't have all the vehicles, by the way. But they do look pretty cool. This Throttle, and then Vinny, and then Moto. And yeah, they look cool. They came with different helmets and I think some different accessories. But I will kind of show that the helmets are redesigned for this. So I'm going to grab those real quick off of these other ones over here and show you. Here they are. So they look like sort of helmets you'd wear, motorcycle helmets in a motocross. Sort of. I'm missing, I think, his. But still kind of cool, kind of fun. And it's interesting how they would actually have all new molds for all this stuff down the line. This has to be the absolute complete total coolest part of Biker Mice, and that is the Biker Mice Nights. And I think they even had another term for it, but these are really cool. And I just thought they were cool because they're vac metalized. But no. They went a step further and just made every one of them awesome. So we're going to start off here with this one. He has a different helmet, of course. And he is the same mold underneath as the original. So exactly the same as the original underneath everything. But he has some armor to clip on. And I think these came later down the line. He has a saw blade. He has hoses, contraptions, two-piece armor that clips together on him. He's got whatever this mace ball is. I think it's supposed to launch, but it doesn't come off very easy, so I'm not going to mess with it. I just display it. It looks really cool. These are expensive figures. The figures themselves aren't expensive. You can probably snag the figures for like $10, but getting the armor and all that, and all of the accessories and backpacks and all that, that's where the money is on these. It's really hard to get them complete. And I ended up buying, some of them I had to buy like 2 to get it as complete as I did. So, and price on these, generally, a complete one goes for $100. So for a Biker Mouse, that's a lot. But when you see that the armor's cool, he's got this piece that comes over and he's got a kind of a sight. That's pretty awesome. There's some paint on that right there. He does have a launcher right here, which is really cool, and just kind of push it on that. Oh my gosh, these missiles are hard to find and expensive. You can put his extra missiles back here and all of that kind of stuff. You can see how it clips on. So really cool. He's just a slightly different color. Ooh, all that weight. Oh man, I broke him. Just kidding. Okay, and here's what he looks like underneath. And I don't really like taking the armor off because I know eventually I will break him. All of this down here is still part of the armor. Really, really cool. And then the leader, throttle, and so I am missing his launcher. I think these two plug into his launcher right there, kind of like it plugs in right here to whatever this is on his wrist. I don't know. I really don't know what all this is supposed to do. I just think it looks really awesome. It's really cool. And if you already had Biker Mice, you're like, well, go after the Knights. I think it's worth it, but price-wise, is it worth the price? I don't know if it's worth the price, but I definitely think it's cool. But underneath, he's just a blue repaint of the original figure, and these came late in the line, so they do have the lower leg, and some of them are one piece, and some are 2 pieces, and they are made to fit the exact figures, so you really can't swap them. They will just fall off, because the figures are all each a little bit different, but really cool Biker Mice Knights. Probably my favorite part of the vintage Biker Mice toy line by far. Next up we have the Super Sidecar. Now this is really strange and mind-blowing, but basically what this is it is a repaint of his motorcycle, but instead of chrome, it is kind of gray. And then I don't have his missiles for it, but instead of red missiles, they're black missiles. And so this is kind of cool, and it is interesting how it works. It is kind of hard to clip this in just right, but get it in there just right. And it's all on this structure here. Now, each one of these sidecars can unclip also from it, which, oh man, what a mess. This is going to turn into a mess trying to do all that. But that kind of shows how it works. It's semi-modular in a way. You can have it each one roll by themselves or without or whatever. Then each car is vac metalized right here, and you can plug in different accessories into a hole here, or back there. I have some duplicate accessories, but I am missing like a single launcher. But, I mean, you kind of get the point and the gist of what's going on with this. Now, if you want to get your figure out of here, then you open this up like so, and then inside here, there's another gun. So that's cool. So you can roll with either take the figure out, or you can have the figure with a gun right there, if that's something that you want. So there's a lot of different options with this, and some of it is just, to me, some of it doesn't really make sense. I don't get all of it, but it's play features that are supposed to be there for this thing to make it a little more fun, I guess. And you got this little Biker Mice symbol going on it. This is the Super Sidecar. Could be super fun. Next up we have Throttle's Blazing Cycle. I don't know if this really counts as a toy. I guess it does, but anyhow, you basically pull a cord and it rolls, and then he can, I guess, hit this jump. I don't know, or maybe you pull it and let him off the jump. I'm not really 100% sure how it's supposed to work. Maybe you plug it into here. You know, funny thing is, I've never really messed with this ramp, so I guess you put it in there and then he rolls off, I guess. But let's see how it looks with the ripcord effect and all of that. Lights up. It's loud. Sorry. Alright, so next up we have the Gel Cruiser, and the thing about the Gel Cruiser is that I thought it was part of the 2006 line. No, it was the Galoob 1993. I don't think they made it in 93. I think they made it a little bit later on in the line, but its styling makes you think it was from the other company. So anyway, this is still pretty cool overall. You do have a few things going on. You have this front motorcycle, and it connects to it and can pull it around. And you just have some rollers on the bottom, so no big wheels, just small rollers on the bottom here. And then you have these handles for him to hold on to. We do have these guns that are friction based to shoot. You can also plug them in here if you choose, or you can plug them in back here, which seems to make more sense to me. And so there's not much more you can do with this. We'll set it aside. All of the party tricks are with this thing here. So for features, there's this lever, and you push the lever back and it will lower the door so that you can pull a bike onto it if you choose. So let's pull a bike onto it that I choose, and that will be this guy. So he's gonna go in here, and you can have a bike and you can haul a bike, and oh, that lever will also close it. Not the best, but it does close it. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of okay too. There are foot pegs here, which I guess I didn't show. The figures have holes for foot pegs, and there's a foot peg here, and I believe the same on the other side, so that you can have your figure stand on there, ride along, whatever. And with that, we do a couple other things. So let's look at what else it can do. There is some detail work on the inside here. We do have this piece here that opens up for storage. You can store a bunch of stuff. There's molded in tools in there. And there's some pieces, I don't know what they go to, but I just leave them in there. And then you can have this screen pop up. There's a little lever on the front, and you can pop up this screen. And as you can see, there are foot pegs. So you could put all your biker mice in here, and there's the screen, and you can look out his screen and all that kind of stuff. But it does even more. There are more configurations to this. So if you lay this down, and this down, and this down, and then close that up and lay this down, then you can haul all three bikes. I believe you can haul all three bikes. I know you can haul at least two. There's one here, and then let's grab another one. That's not the daintiest look to it, but you can haul all three bikes, or two bikes, sorry. There's slots for all three, 1, 2, 3, but you only fit two on there at a time. You can only fit two. For some reason, I always thought it could fit three, because there's 1, 2, 3 slots. Maybe if you only want to take one, put it in the center, and then you take two, you go to the outside slots. But there it is. Real quick, there's some cool ones that I didn't show. This one is the Whip Kick Throttle from the Sports Bros. So this is one that I don't have, and I didn't even know they made it, but now I do know they make it, and it looks pretty cool overall. Not sure it's something to try to chase down. So we do have a few things like the Astro Boys line of the figures, and that is pretty cool, but I think the motorcycles are way cooler, and I think they sold them separately, not as like a gift set, but this one is the Neutron Throttles Neutron Racer, and so this is completely different. Or they took the base, made some changes to it, but they did do a lot of different things down the road. This is the Crater Cruiser, Moto's Crater Cruiser, so he's got wings on the side. This is completely different, and it is cool also. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that they did. This feels like a mass vehicle overall, kind of transforms, but I like what they did here, and pretty cool stuff. Really expensive and hard to get. So this is the Sky Commander from the Freedom Fighters line. So this is pretty interesting too. This is Vinny, and it's kind of like one of those kites. It's like a kite. It's like a glider. It's sort of like with G.I. Joe gliders, but it's still pretty cool, pretty interesting. Very rare, hard to get. And there are a lot of these gift sets, and the gift sets have repainted bikes in them, and that's kind of cool. Some of them are really cool looking. Some of them look kind of strange, but this overall, at a certain point, buying the same motorcycle and the same figure over and over repainted. So I hope you enjoyed the look at the 1993 Galoob Biker Mice toy line. It is a pretty good toy line. It's pretty big, way bigger than I thought it would be, and kind of copying Ninja Turtles, kind of like that's how it goes. But it's a good toy line. There's a lot of fun aspects to it. Very good displayability. These figures are more or less, the bad guys are sort of statues. The good guys have some articulation, fit their motorcycles, but the motorcycle's part of it. DeCell's bringing this back. Maybe they're going to bring it back in a big way. Maybe it's barely going to make the radar, but still kind of cool. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Teddy Hanger out.
You were then to demolish it?
That's right, boss.
Then why is it still there?
It wasn't my fault, boss. Honest. You see, there were these big mice.
Why can't anybody rid me of these bothersome vermin?